the one caller 64.
Sure. Yeah. Andy in New Mexico, you're on with Lloyd and Matt.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Pretty good. Says you used to be an atheist and you did some drugs and now you're a theist.
See, I'm afraid I'm going to sound like a crazy hippie. Here's where I'm coming from. First off, huge fan. I love your work. I'm a skeptic. I'm a naturalist. I'm an atheist by everyone else's definition, unless I'm talking to someone who really wants to parse the words. And I guess, yeah, essentially, I'm not calling it a theory. I'm going to call it a hypothesis. So we're all walking around with our own little movies in our heads, right? Like I'm a solipsist experientially. Like the outside world that I experience is constructed by my mind. I don't think there's a soul. I think we're all just little, projectors walking around, experiencing what we can with our senses, yada, yada, yada. Well, I read Sam Harris's book, started meditating, lost my sense of self through some drug use, but I had an experience that, while not convincing me of a God, with quotation marks around it, a all-powerful white man with a beard, my understanding of what's possible makes me feel just that much more like an ant. And I feel like there are probably things out there that exist in the 96% of stuff that we can't measure with our senses and measuring tools. Well, that, dark stuff, like, it's like the flatland thing. Like, how do you explain the third dimension to a two-dimensional being? Well, I had some crazy drug trips where I think I kind of got a glimpse of what it might look like to see time sideways, like where that other direction might be. And all it did is just broaden my horizons to the point where I'm just that much more skeptical about my own experience. And I would not, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say I'm a deist that believes in who knows how many billions, trillions of gods. And all these gods,
none of that
they wanted to interact with me.
None of that sounds.
I would be like, what I mean?
So first of all, it seems you don't understand skepticism, because you were talking about how you're more skeptical, and then you said something which seems to be the antithesis of what skepticism would be. Because what you're saying, you potentially believe in billions of gods. What evidence do you have for any of those billions?
I mean, I don't have any evidence. I don't actively believe.
So you're
this.
saying,
like I said, this is my hypothesis. I don't.
Andy, hang on. So you're saying you believe something that you don't have evidence for. That ain't how skepticism works.
I don't. I don't believe it. I'm saying this is a hypothetical. This is a potential possibility in my brain. I'm leaving the option that there could be beings that exist in a higher plane, perhaps.
So if I take some drugs,
and I don't think they
if
are.
I take some drugs and I end up having
a
a conversation with a group of Smurfs, therefore Smurfs are real because I've had this experience, and it's possible that Smurfs are real, and I experienced it in a drug trip. So maybe Smurfs are real. Again, that's not how skepticism works.
Can I adjust your metaphor maybe a little bit? The way I see it is that we're ants, and say that there's a human walking by, and this human, oh shoot, I see all these ants, they're doing their ant thing.
Ants
How do
can
I interact
prove
with these beings that essentially only see or interact?
Andy, you're muted. Ants could prove and experience and witness and interact with a human.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, I mean, all I can say is that, yeah, I am completely relying on my subjective experience, which is not evidence. I understand that.
And why should we take your subjective experience as a barometer for reality?
You're also using your fantasy,
well, I mean,
but then you're also using bad analogies, because if we are ants to a god, and ants can demonstrate a god, then we should be able to demonstrate, or ants can demonstrate a human, should be able to demonstrate a god.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, potentially it's something that science could get to, maybe. I don't know.
And potentially it's something
I'm trying to use my working knowledge of science to integrate this theory a little bit.
This is bullshit navel gazing, garbage stuff where you come in and say, hey, maybe eventually science might prove this, man. Well, cool. Thanks for wasting.
Hold on. Can I elaborate? This is something I came up with in 20 minutes. This is 20 years of.
Andy, I'm going to let you elaborate on your own because I'm hanging up.
That was really, I'm sorry, Andy, that was really self-indulgent. You know,
Yeah.
Who really cares what you experienced on a drug trip? That has no bearing on reality at all.
There are people who genuinely believe in a God, who dedicate their entire life to this God, who vote and enact legislation that marginalizes the rights of other people based on this God. There are people who believe in gods that keep entire communities essentially enslaved, backward, sacrificing their rights and their dignity and their humanity. And you call up to talk about what you think you might have engaged with in some fucking trip. How dare you? Oh, but dude, no. For some of us, this shit is actually important. For some of us, this shit is life and death. As children are being denied medical treatment by parents who believe that God doesn't want them to do that. As people who are being denied their fundamental rights, you know,
families ripped apart through shunning.
Trans women right now.
Yeah.
And you call in, oh man, I got so high this one time that I thought maybe this sort of thing over here might actually fuck right on off.
It's just not a game. It really isn't a game.
I know we have fun with this, and I know that we try and we engage in a lot of batshit beliefs, but at least I try to engage with people who seem to be sincerely talking about what they actually believe. And if it's full on batshittery, cool, we can point that out. But I don't want people calling in to talk about what they think they could potentially maybe believe if science could demonstrate something a little farther down after they take their tinfoil hat off and set the bong down. I don't need that.